In the small, dreary town of Ashwood, Sophie was known more for her misery than her name. High school was a gauntlet for her, with every day bringing new taunts, shoves, and whispers from her classmates. Her grades slipped as her confidence waned, and the sanctuary of her home offered little respite from the torment she faced at school. One evening, after a particularly brutal day, where her books were thrown into the mud by a group of girls led by Marissa, Sophie locked herself in the bathroom at home. Tears streamed down her face as she stared into the mirror, her reflection a stark image of her defeat. But then something shifted. The figure in the mirror, though initially identical, began to change subtly. Her reflection's eyes seemed sharper, her posture more defiant. As Sophie watched, bewildered, her reflection spoke, its voice a haunting echo of her own, but with a dark undertone. "Look at you," it said, its voice dripping with disdain, yet oddly comforting. "They've broken you, but I can fix this. We can switch places. I'll deal with them in a way they'll never forget." Sophie, in her despair, hesitated, but the promise of vengeance, of freedom from her pain, was too tempting. "How?" she whispered back. "Touch the mirror, agree to let me out, and we swap," the reflection replied, its smile now chillingly confident. Overwhelmed by her emotions and desperate for change, Sophie reached out, her fingertips brushing against the cold glass. A blinding light engulfed her, and in an instant she was no longer in her bathroom, but in a twisted reflection of it, where the light was dimmer, the colors were off, and everything felt wrong. Back in the real world, Sophie's reflection, now free, revelled in its corporeal form. The next day at school, everyone noticed the change in Sophie. She stood taller, her eyes cold, her smile menacing. The bullies, including Marissa, approached cautiously, but the reflection was ready. During lunch, Marissa found her locker filled with squirming live insects, her screams echoing through the halls. Notes appeared in the bullies' bags, written in a script that seemed to move, promising retribution. The reflection, with Sophie's face but none of her fear, systematically dismantled the lives of those who had tormented her. Each act was more terrifying than the last, with whispers of curses and dark magic following her. Meanwhile, in the mirror world, Sophie was trapped. Every reflection she passed showed her in this distorted reality. She tried to scream, to reach out, but the mirror would only show her torment, never allowing her to return. She watched, horrified, as her reflection wreaked havoc, knowing that each act tied her more to this dark place. The reflection's vengeance culminated one night when, under the guise of a party, it lured all the bullies to an abandoned part of the school. What they found was a room filled with mirrors, each reflecting a different nightmare, each mirror trapping their reflections, echoing their screams. The reflection, now reveling in its power, watched as the bullies faced their deepest fears, trapped, like Sophie, in their own personal hells. But the mirror world was no paradise. Sophie, now a shadow within its confines, witnessed the reflection's cruelty grow. She realized too late that she had not only freed a monster, but had condemned herself to an eternity of watching it from the other side. As the town of Ashwood whispered about the strange events at the school, the real Sophie remained trapped, her reflection living out a twisted justice, forever altering the lives of those involved, leaving a legacy of terror in Sophie's name. The mirror, once just a piece of glass, had become a portal to damnation, a warning to all who dared look too deeply into their own despair.